So I'm going to start off, I don't want to use that. So can everybody hear me if I just kind of talk loud? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah? Okay, great. So I'm just going to start out kind of giving you a little, hold on. I want to give you a little bit of background on Spiritism, because although some of us are Spiritists, there's also others that are not Spiritists, and I think it's really important to understand why Spiritism and suicide kind of go hand in hand, and how this is our mission at the Long Island Spiritist Doctrine Study Group. So you'll see here there's 5 books. This is the compilation that makes up the Spiritist codification. And basically this goes back to our friend Allan Kardec in the 1800s, the mid-1800s. He had communications with various mediums. He would have them ask questions to spirits. The spirits would then provide answers to these questions. Now, they were not in all one place. They did not have the internet or telephones to talk to each other. But somehow, when he compiled this information, he saw he was getting the same information regardless of where he was asking the questions. And he was able to come up with these books that kind of help us and guide us with the Spiritist doctrine. So personally, I started studying Spiritism about 2 years ago, maybe almost 3 years ago now. And it's an ongoing process. So for me, I grew up in the Catholic religion. That wasn't something that I always connected with, but I knew that there was something more, and I wanted to kind of dive into it. Unfortunately, I'm a scientist, and that didn't work with religion so much for me. So with Spiritism, they call it philosophy, religion, and science. It's kind of this whole effort put together. So for me, this was the way to go. I was able to do investigation. I was able to ask questions, but they had answers. And so far, in 3 years, I haven't gotten an answer yet that I didn't like. So moving forward, this kind of helped shape who I'm becoming today. So in the Spirit's book, this is just an excerpt, and this is kind of one of the main focuses of Spiritism. And I'll just read it right here off the screen. You can read along with me. Spirits do not belong to the same order forever. They all improve themselves, passing through the different degrees of the spirit hierarchy. This improvement occurs through incarnation, which is imposed on some as an expiation and on others as a mission. Earthly life is a trial to which they submit themselves many times until they reach absolute perfection. It is a kind of sifter or purifier from which they emerge at different degrees of refinement or improvement. So I think the first thing that we need to do is just look at what is suicide. It's important to kind of have this as a definition. So these are definitions given by the CDC, and they're pretty straightforward, black and white. Suicide, death caused by self-directed injurious behavior with an intent to die as a result of the behavior. And then we have a suicide attempt. This is a non-fatal, self-directed, potentially injurious behavior with an intent to die as a result of the behavior. However, it might not result in injury. And then lastly, there is suicidal ideation. This is where you're thinking about, you're considering, you're planning suicide. So there are different levels here. One that is not mentioned but is equally as important is the unconscious suicide. And we're going to dive into that a little bit deeper today with our speakers. But just because you don't realize you're committing suicide, you could be doing kind of dangerous, reckless behavior that in turn is this unconscious or suicide that you might not be even aware of, whether it be an addiction or just harming yourself in other ways. So I just wanted to pull up, this is called the interpersonal theory of suicide, and there is Dr. Joyner that had come up with this theory, and basically you've got 3 pieces when we're talking about suicide and actual lethal suicide attempts. So in order for there to be a desire for suicide, you are going to have a person that feels that they are a burden to the world. They feel that they're a burden to their family, they're a burden to society. You then have this feeling of low belongingness. They feel alone, they feel socially alienated. These two come together to create this suicidal desire. But with suicidal desire alone, that does not mean that they will be capable of actually committing the act of suicide. So this is where we add in this capability for suicide. And once you add that third piece, that's where you get the lethal suicide attempts. At this point, the person has repeated exposure to painful acts. They almost come immune to it. It doesn't even faze them anymore. So over a period of time, they don't even feel fear about dying. They don't even feel the pain. They're just numb. And this is where it comes to this lethal suicide attempt. So there actually is studies done that tell that the more suicide attempts, the more likely that they will commit suicide in the future. And personally, I know 4 individuals in my life that have committed suicide. Of the 4 of them, 3 of them I know for sure had previous attempts prior to actually doing it. The 4th one I wasn't as close with, so I'm not so sure if he did or did not. But regardless, that's still 75% of them had tried to commit suicide. 75%. They had a chance to then come out of it, and they did not get the help they needed. They felt that they were a burden. They felt that they were alone, and now they had that capability, which led to this final lethal attempt. So how Spiritism it kind of relates to suicide, and like I said, this is our mission here. We need to learn about trials versus expiations. And in Spiritism, when we talk about trials, we're talking about the challenges that we go to. This is what's helping us to evolve, to grow. Our expiations, this is what we are going through that we can atone for the mistakes we have made, maybe in this life, maybe in a past life. But the biggest thing with Spiritism, and this is going to be a recurring theme throughout the day, is the fact that we need to change our perspective. We have to stop looking at them as problems and start looking at them as opportunities. And that is how we can prevent suicide. So I have just an excerpt from the Spirit's book again. This was question 132 from the Spirit's book. And it asks, what is the purpose of the incarnation of spirits? And the answer, God imposes incarnation for the purpose of leading spirits to perfection. For some, it is an expiation, for others, a mission. However, in order to reach this perfection, they must undergo all the vicissitudes of corporal existence. Therein lies their expiation. So we need these struggles to grow. There's a reason. We're not suffering because God hates us. We're suffering because he wants to see us grow and he wants to see us evolve. So just to get a little bit more into Spiritist thoughts on suicide, I've got 2 other questions that come from the Spirit's book. This is question number 944, and it asks, has a man the right to dispose of his life? And the answer, no, that right belongs to God alone. He who voluntarily commits suicide contravenes the providential ordering which sent him into the earthly life. And the next, 957, what are in general the effects of suicide on the state of the spirit by whom it has been committed? The consequences of suicide vary in different cases. The one punishment which none can escape who have committed suicide is disappointment. The rest of their punishment depends on circumstances. Now, as a spiritist, we know what the complications are. We know better. So the more you know, the more you're going to be held accountable for these suicide ideations. In the codification, there is a book, it's called The Gospel According to Spiritism, and chapter 5 is titled, Blessed Are the Afflicted. And this really kind of touched me in thinking about suicide and how we can talk about prevention. And it discusses that Earth is an area where we're going through trials and we are going through expiations, we're making atonements. There's different reasons for this. So we need to know, why are we dealing with these afflictions? What happened? That something happened in order for us to have to deal with these. Was it something we did in a previous lifetime? Was it a lack of spirituality? Were we holding on to resentment, to anger? So there's reasons for the way that our physical body is interpreting these spiritual afflictions. And we need to understand both the spiritual and physical body, taking care of both in order to be well. So this is just from the gospel. It's a little excerpt. it said, humans are often the authors of their own misfortunes, but many refuse admitting this because it would belittle their vanity. So they prefer accusing God, their bad luck, or their unlucky star, although the root cause of their problems is actually their own negligence. So they need to look within. And this brings us to the point of moral cowardice versus moral courage. If you know and you're not doing anything about it, you could be considered that you're a coward. If you know, and even though you're struggling, you decide to push forward, that's where the moral courage comes in. So just one other excerpt. It said, humans tend to become desperate when they believe their suffering is endless. And then it says, those who deny eternity, now I lost my whole place. Those who deny eternity or judge that everything ends with bodily death may see suicide as the only solution for their sorrow. So they're basically thinking, okay, I'm leaving here. I don't have to deal with this anymore. That's not the case. Even though we're leaving the physical realm, we still have our spirit, and we are living beyond the flesh. So our existence is not going to end at that point where you think, okay, now I'm dead, I don't have to deal with this anymore. Oh no, it continues on afterwards. So for me, what Spiritism has done is it's giving me perspective. And I think this is the most important take home, and this is the prevention, is changing your perspective. So in this picture, I don't know if it's clear enough for you to see, but it says how something appears is always a matter of perspective. So if you're looking at it from this angle, you're saying it's a circle. You're looking at it from this angle, you're saying it's a square. It's both, but it's just the way that your perspective is. So we think, is the cup half full? Is the cup half empty? This is all going to come back to your perspective. So personally, when I started studying Spiritism, I had gone through a very rough time in my life where I was diagnosed with panic disorder. Now, I would have panic attacks to the point that I would have 20 or more a day. I could not get out of my bed. I could not do my daily living. I felt like a failure. I felt like I was a failure as a wife. I felt like I was a failure as a mother and as a professional. And I had support, and some people, if I walked past them, no idea that anything was wrong with me because I was able to keep it all inside. But what I needed was perspective. I needed to change the way that I was thinking to help grow. That doesn't mean that I don't still deal with my struggles. I deal with them every single day. And now, girl with panic attack is standing in front of all of you, so I'm gonna not have one right now. But it is important to just take the time and understand that going through this, you might have to go through an expiation. You might have to go through your trials, but this is something you need to do to grow. Taking the way out, that's not going to help you grow, and you're going to be kind of held back there. So I just want to show you one picture. Someone, if you could just raise your hand, tell me what you see in this photo. What do you see?
I think it's a kid look forward. It's a woman. It's a woman.
A young woman or an old woman?
A young woman.
A young woman. Anyone else see something different? What do you see? You see an old woman. Okay, perspective. We could say, this is a feather, this is her hair, this is her nose, she's looking back, here's her pretty scarf. Or, it's an old woman. Here is her nose, here is her mouth, and she has her head tucked in to her chin. Do you see how you can see? I don't know what it is. We're looking at the same picture. We all have different perspectives on it. So, this is something, a famous quote. What? The young girl? Here's the nose, this is her eyelashes. So take this part away. She's looking back over her shoulder. You see?
I don't see the old lady.
You don't see the old lady? This is, all right, now, you need to clear it out. Clean your palate. This is the nose, this is her chin, this is her mouth. And this is her scarf.
There too.
And see, even right now, I'm telling you what's there, and you still can't see it. So, perspective. It's all about perspective. I'll pull this up later if someone wants to come take a look. So, this is Abraham Lincoln. We can complain because rose bushes have thorns, or rejoice because thorn bushes have roses. And I like that quote a lot. So something important just to get down to the facts, there is 90% of the people who die by suicide that are diagnosed with a treatable psychiatric disorder at the time of their death. Main thing, it's treatable. They can get help, but they do not get help, 90%. This could be anxiety disorders, depression, may have lost someone they loved, may have been emotionally abused, physically abused, whatever the case may be. They can get help, but are they getting the help that they need? So, as I said before, there are times when people that have known me, they would have no idea what I went through because they ask me, how are you? Fine, I'm fine, everything's great, okay. It's not fine, you're just not telling them that it's not fine. So, it's kind of hard to see, but in this word fine, it kind of breaks it down. Useless, broken, never good enough, you're anxious, you are rejected, lonely, defeated. All of these things that you might be feeling, but you say you're fine. Why do you say you're fine when you're not fine? You're not fine, but you won't say that you're not fine. And the reason, number one, is the stigma. Stigma associated with mental health disorders. The stigma associated with suicide. Oh, there must be something wrong with them. They're dangerous. Okay, well then I'm not going to tell you that I'm thinking these horrible things because you're going to think horrible things about me. The other thing, you're guilty. I cannot do this to the people around me. I don't want to tell them. I don't want them to know that this is happening. You feel shame. You might be too proud. This is not happening. I'm fine. I am fine. I'm going to just keep saying it. Even though I feel it, I'm going to keep pushing it down. So we need to remember that just because someone says they're fine doesn't necessarily mean that they're fine. So just a little statistics. This is according to Psychology Today. Mental illness worldwide cost $2.5 trillion in 2010 and is projected to cost $6 trillion by 2030. 90% of those with mental health conditions, specifically in developing countries, so here in the United States, do not receive any form of care. So there's our problem. They're there, they're just kind of hiding underneath. And just a couple of other statistics. Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death among Americans. More than 42,000 people died by suicide in 2014, and those were the statistics I could get. In the past year, more than 1 million people reported suicide attempts. I think this is especially noted, reported. That doesn't mean the people that tried and no one knew about them. This is just the ones that were reported. So we need to understand that every single thought, every single action creates a ripple effect. So even if we think we are only harming ourselves, we're taking, everyone else is going to be fine because we're going to be fine. This is not the case because it's going to have a ripple effect. There are survivors of suicide, anyone who's had to deal with someone who not only, maybe someone who committed suicide, but even if they just attempted suicide, these survivors now have to deal with that for the rest of their lives, the worry, the fear, and a suicide survivor is actually more likely to commit suicide themselves than if they had not gone through that experience. So I have just a brief little video here, and let's hope it works. Let's see if, and this is about a survivor.
We have lost far too many lives traveling the path to this day.
Since 1937, over 2,000 people have died before we approach. I feel lucky to be alive every single day. Of the thousands that have died off the Golden Gate Bridge, I am of the 1% who have survived. So I was born on drugs and premature, and then I bounced around home to home. Nobody wanted to keep me because I was sick, and I got lucky. I landed in the home of Patrick and Deborah Hines. I had a great childhood. I thought, growing up, that everything's going to be great, and then at 17, it all came crashing down. If you can imagine feeling that everyone around you is out to get you, trying to hurt you, and trying to kill you, and you believe that to be the truth. From the extreme paranoia, I exhibited symptoms of mania. From the mania came the hallucinations with auditory and visual. And so with that and bipolar disorder, I just was spiraling out of control. I vividly remember writing my suicide note. People don't get it. Like, I thought I was a burden to everyone who loved me. Because that's what my brain told me, because that's how powerful your brain is. I got off the bus. I walked slowly down the walkway of the Golden Gate Bridge. People rode by me, drove by me, walked by me, and a woman approached me. And she said, "Do you take my picture?" She said thanks, and she walked away. At that moment, I just said, nobody cares. The reality was that everybody cared. I just couldn't see it. I ran forward, and using my two hands, I catapulted myself in a free fall. What I'm about to say is the exact same thing that 19 Golden Gate Bridge jump survivors have also said. The millisecond my hands left the rail, it was an instant regret. And I remember thinking, no one's going to know that I didn't want to die. In 4 seconds, I fell 75 miles an hour, 25 stories, and I hit the water. I was in the most physical pain I've ever experienced. I have ever experienced. The Coast Guard was amazing. He was just so freaked out that I was alive that he just dove in and brought me on board. The guy said, "You know how many people we blood to water that are already dead?" And I said, "No, I don't want to know." The guy put his hand on my forehead. He said, "Kid, you're a miracle." My father took one step in the hospital room, and I looked up at him and I said, "Dad, I'm sorry." And he said, "No, Ken, I'm sorry." And if you think about it, both of our immediate reactions were guilt. Guilt doesn't belong to either of us. And even though I didn't die, I caused people a great deal of grief and pain. Just the date of my attempt still sits within them today. I asked my father if he still feared my death by suicide. He said, every time the phone goes off, his first inclination is Kevin alive. I had an impact on my death. So after the jump, the road to recovery was pretty long. I had 7 psych ward stays in the next 11 years. I still have all the symptoms I ever had. Mania, depression, psychosis, hallucinations, all that's still there. I just know how to cope with it and I know how to beat it. I built a support network over these years of treatment so that I wouldn't be fighting this alone. So like, it's okay not to be okay. It's not okay not to ask for somebody back up. To the families who live with the losses of loved ones, they didn't do that to hurt you or destroy your life. They took their lives because they were struggling in a great deal of emotional mental pain. Suicide, mental illness, and addiction are the only diseases that we blame the person for perpetually. But people die from suicide just like they die from any other organ disease. Today, no matter the pain I'm in, no matter the struggles I experience, I do believe that life is the greatest gift we've ever been given. And if you're suffering mentally, don't wait like I did sitting in denial for so long. Because recovery happens. Living proof.
So this is a quote. This is a girl I just recently became aware of her. Her name is Claire Winelands, and she is a girl that's suffering from cystic fibrosis, and it's a terminal condition. So she actually is going to die, and she kind of faces it head on. And hearing her story and learning about her and what she does with what she has of her life has kind of turned me around it and helped me, again, gain that perspective, just like Spiritism has. So what she says is, my challenge to you, start looking at your challenges as friends that are going to help you grow. So we don't know what kind of challenges we face, but we know that we're going to face challenges. You're not going to live through your life and never deal with any type of struggle. However, we need to be aware that suicide is not the option. This is going to set us back even further. And really what we need to do is help those around us, love them. Charity, fraternity, and love, these are the things that Spiritism, it kind of is the base of it. And this is what helps all those around us and helps ourselves as well. So can I say, okay, you'll become a Spiritist, you're never going to commit suicide? No, I can't say that. This is up to you. You need to take it and you need to make it what you want it to be for you. this is not a religion, this is not something that you're gonna go and you have to follow these sets of rules. You take what you need and you grow and you learn from what they have to offer you. And I'll just leave you with, this is another quote, again, it's from Claire Winelands, but I really loved it. She said, "I think I'm just as confused as everyone else on how to make our lives a piece of art, but I think part of the joy is simply trying. I am so proud to be alive. I'm not saying that I don't feel pain. I'm not saying that I don't feel sadness and suffering and loneliness, because that's what it means to be a human being. I'm saying that that pain, that loneliness, that sadness is beautiful. You are never going to be happy with what you get unless you are happy with what you have." And I really love that. So we have a great lineup. You're gonna see so many great speakers, and I'm really glad that you're all here. We're gonna take just a brief, little break. We're gonna, no, not doing a break, just, yes, doing a break. What's happening?
We're gonna take the order a little bit.
Okay, come, then I'm gonna invite Jim Shore back up here to get us on track. Thank you.
Pardon me, excuse me, pardon me.